Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we decode the language of business. Today, prepare for a deep dive into a company that's betting on its own CEO. Seems risky. Oh, you have no idea. We're cracking open an amendment to a report filed by ProPhase Labs, and it involves some interesting loans, warrants that are waiting for approval, and a CEO who's also lending the company money. Before we start, if you appreciate getting straight insights from corporate documents, make sure you're subscribed. We also have a Discord community linked in the description below where you can discuss these reports with other people. This filing is actually an amendment, specifically amendment number 1 to a previous report. The reason for this updated filing, to include the actual agreements, the official papers related to something important that we'll break down for you today. In effect, the company is adding the fine print to a story they already started telling. Here's the crux of the matter. On June 22nd, ProPhase Labs entered into 2 identical loan agreements. Think of it as the company borrowing money, but with a twist. One of the lenders is Ted Karkus, who is both the company's chief executive officer or CEO and the chairman of the board of directors. When a company does business with its own executives, it's called a related party transaction, and it raises some eyebrows. Why? Because it can create conflicts of interest and doesn't sit right with some investors. Let's break down the loan itself. It's for $500,000. It's non-convertible, meaning the money being lent cannot be switched into company stock later on. However, here's where it gets interesting. ProPhase only gets to use $400,000 out of the $500,000 to Mr. Karkus for expenses and legal reimbursements, and will only have 12 months or a year to repay the loan. Finally, the investors in the loan get a priority on these repayments. So to speak, they are subordinate to other lenders up to $6,000 in the events the company also has to pay $10,000 to Mr. Karkus for expenses and legal reimbursements, and will only $50 be CASs and legal reimbursements, and will only have 12 months or a year to repay the loans up to $6,000 in the event the company fails. But wait, there's more. To sweeten the deal, the company also gave 500,000 warrants. Warrants are options to buy company stock at a set price. However, these warrants don't kick in until a future shareholder meeting approves an increase in the company's total available shares, which is what the company calls the unvested warrants. The key thing is that this increase in shares has to be voted on and approved by shareholders. If the increase doesn't pass, Mr. Karkus gets nothing in return. If the increase is approved, Mr. Karkus can buy the shares for warrants, the ESIG dollars and dollars as shillings each. According to the document, the terms of this loan were reviewed and approved by the audit committee of the board of directors. This committee is supposed to look out for the company's best interests and check for any funny business in related transactions. It's worth noting that even with this approval, these kinds of arrangements always attract extra scrutiny. This part is short. It's simply saying that what we discussed above, the loan agreement creates a direct financial obligation for the company. In other words, ProPhase Labs now owes this money and has to pay it back, which is what you'd expect. This is about the warrants. The company claims it didn't need to register these warrants with the Securities and Exchange Commission or SEC. They're relying on a legal exemption. This is common, especially in smaller deals, but it requires meeting certain conditions like only selling to accredited investors. Finally, we have a list of exhibits. Typically, these exhibits are attachments to the main report. In this case, Exhibit 99.1 and 99.2 are the actual text of the loan agreements that the company has with Mr. Karkus and with other unaffiliated investors. Potential investors will use these to examine the exact terms of the debt, external, zooming out, what does all of this mean? ProPhase Labs is in a position where it needs to borrow money, and its CEO is stepping up to provide some of it. On one hand, this could be seen as a sign of confidence from Mr. Karkus. It suggests he believes in the company's future and is willing to put his own money on the line. On the other hand, it raises questions about the company's financial health. Why is it relying on its own CEO for funding? Does it signal a lack of other options or confidence from traditional lenders? Additionally, is Mr. Karkus getting a sweet deal that other investors wouldn't get? Are those warrants excessively generous, and will they heavily dilute the stock price when they are purchased? The warrants are also an interesting part of the story. They only become real if shareholders agree to increase the number of available shares. This puts the decision in the hands of the shareholders. They need to decide whether the loan and the warrants are good for the company overall. If they reject an increase in the company's total shares, it could create tension. Ultimately, this all comes down to risk. ProPhase Labs is taking a gamble by relying on its CEO for funding. Investors need to weigh the potential rewards against the very real risk of conflicts of interest and excessive debt for the company. Alright, that's our breakdown of ProPhase Labs' latest filing. What's your take on this loan agreement and what it signals for the company's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to check out the Discord in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.